feel stretched. I feel like my attention is just splintered. I feel just overloaded and like things are just stacking, and I can't see out from underneath them. These are all things that I heard from leaders this week around the world. The multiple pressures are in no way slowing down, they're actually increasing. And then add on top of that the swirl of the external changes in the external environment. And you can imagine that one of the greatest challenges today is how we take charge of our energy and make sure that we stay as much in a zone of high performance as possible, optimal not only performance, but fulfillment. And when we get a little destabilized, how can we recalibrate ourselves as quickly as possible back into a state of flow, a state of ease, optimal performance, and enjoyment quickly. Today, we're going to explore 2 leverage points that you have and help you shift back into optimal flow state. I'm Leanne Del Carpio, and I hope that this is going to be resonant with you because so many of us are grappling with not only a number of initiatives on our workplace, let's say 5 different key initiatives that you're working on in the workplace, all of which demand your attention, not to mention your bosses may be interested in seeing it, or the marketplace wants whatever you're creating. But then a lot of different roles that we play in our personal lives that are under stress and strain because of the rapidly changing environment that we're within. All of these things converge. And as many of you may be familiar, you may know how to get into that sweet spot where you are performing well, where everything kind of feels like it's just locking and loading, and you feel like time disappears and there's just an ease with which things happen. On a good day, we can experience that in a presentation that we're giving, or for those of you who run or play sports like golf or tennis, you can feel it when you're in that optimal state. We can feel it when we have just the right response to our child as a parent, right? And these are sweet moments that sometimes can feel few and far between when all these things are stacking up. So I want to offer to you a framework to help us think through this and attune your awareness a little bit more precisely on 2 different levels: your level of perception and your physiology. Let's get to it. So most of you will have maybe some kind of sense that when a challenge kind of pulls us out of our comfort zone, the challenge is rising, maybe it's not dramatic, but maybe let's say 4 or 5% outside our comfort zone, it's kind of energizing at the beginning, right? So imagine again like a work project that you have, and maybe it's a series of them, right? And they're all kind of converging with the same deadline at the same time. Like right now, I have all the executives that I work with asking for executive offsites within a 4-week period of time. What's up, people? Why does that have to be? I don't know. Anyway, that would be an example of stacking. But at the beginning, as I think about each one of those opportunities, it's kind of, I'm curious about it. It's kind of cool. My energy's like calm, like I got this, right? I'm kind of excited about the different possible ways that we could approach it. I do see the complexities that are involved. At the same time, I'm interested, right? Leaning in. So you'll know that you're in the initial stage. I'm going to call it zone A, where you're kind of leaning into the challenge and optimizing, you're not quite at peak performance yet, but you're kind of leaning into to get ready, get organized. Maybe you're organizing your team. That's what we're going to call zone A. And you'll recognize that because your energy is building. When you get to that sweet spot, I'll call it zone B, or we can call it the flow state or the zone. This is when our perception of the challenge at hand and our ability to meet that challenge at hand kind of intersect. It's where we feel that we are using our superpowers, our divine genius, right? Our ability to bring our best to bear. And somehow it just hits the mark. And our team members, they're all using their secret powers, their strengths, right? And we're all somehow kind of weaving that together in a way that hits the mark collectively together. That is the state that we're all looking for. And neuroscientists would call this kind of level of stress challenge stress. It's a stress that brings us to rise to the challenge. And it feels actually kind of invigorating, especially after you nail it, right? With a presentation or the tennis court or what have you. Then things keep stacking, or you have a big event come and hit you, like the week that the world shut down due to COVID, wherever that was in your part of the world. And suddenly that our perception of all of the things that are going on and our ability to meet the challenges at hand, it changes. And what was once invigorating is now overwhelming. What was once kind of energizing is now depleting. And with that perception change, we move into what I'm going to call zone C here. And our nervous systems get triggered into fight, flight, or freeze. We are now hypervigilant of the environment around us. We're kind of assessing for threats. That's literally what our nervous system, our brains are doing, because we are hardwired in that way. It was really useful when there were saber-toothed tigers outside of our caves, right? But this is when we are scanning every single social change, every single change in order, hierarchy, control, etc. Our nervous systems are perceiving that as a threat. And if we do not find ways to recalibrate our energy, right, to reset our nervous systems, it's easy to slide into exhaustion, physical, mental, emotional. And if left unattended, this can result in some physical kind of impact, even kind of a mental, emotional, not necessarily breakdown, but a sense of just fatigue, or even despair, sadness, etc. So this kind of stress, allostasis, is also called threat stress from neuroscientific perspective. And this is not the healthy kind of stress. And yet in our current environment, we can't always control the external environment. So we need to know how to recognize when we are going from challenge stress, bringing out the best in us, to threat stress. And notice it at two different levels. You'll notice the first one is perception. So for myself recently, as a number of different projects were stacking up, and legitimately there are X number of hours in a day, X number of days in a week, etc. And parenting challenges came in at the same time. Some elder care challenges came in. I needed to find a way to reset my energy quickly and continue to be in an optimal state in all the different arenas of my life. And so one of the first levers that I pulled was my perception lever. And what this means to me is I take, again, not too much time, but like 15 to 20 minutes, and I do a kind of focus reset exercise with myself. I notice if my energy is now shifting into this kind of fight or flight, what perceptually did I shift? What changed in my perception of the challenge at hand? The challenge is still the same, but something changed in my perception. So what was it? How was I thinking about it, and what's my perception about it now? If I can kind of unpack that, there's usually an emotion associated with it, and I can start to notice how that shows up in my body. But if I can notice what their perception is, sometimes right there it unlocks my energy, because I notice, okay, I'm thinking about it in this way. If I either break apart the challenge into smaller pieces, chunk down the goal, or shift my perception to look at it in a different angle, suddenly it unlocks all these things that I didn't even see were possible, because frankly, the stress hormones of cortisol and adrenaline, etc., were kind of pumping through my brain and my body and not really allowing me to see what was possible. So a focus, reset, perception, challenge, change is your first lever. The second lever is noticing what's going on within your physiology. If we notice at a very acute level, in the middle of a meeting, for example, when the deadline just moved up by, like, let's say a week, and you're thinking, how the heck am I going to get this done? Do they know what else I got going on in my life, right? You have to be attuned to what's going on at a very granular level. For me, I notice it in my jaw. My jaw will start to tighten. I'll feel it kind of just, the shoulders will kind of either move up a little bit, or I'll also notice in my body posture, I'm kind of leaning in. It's almost like my body's like ready to jump into action, right? So I notice for myself that when my posture changes, my physiology changes, I'm holding some of the pressure and the tension there. And that is an opportunity to create a different kind of pause, to reset and recalibrate. This I would call a creation pause. And this is my opportunity, or freedom pause is the other thing that I've called it. It's a space to give yourself, and I don't know, you'll have to figure out what the time is for you, but 15, 20 minutes to just notice what's going on, what's the message in the tight jaw, and have a clean piece of paper in front of you, or a whiteboard, whatever, some place to just with nothing on it, a space to write, draw, or capture an image. That's all you need. And notice, sense into what's going on in your body. What's going on there, and what might this mean? An example, a client this week showed up to the coaching call with a sty in her eye. And literally, she described it as like a grain of sand kind of grating against her eye. And as we talk through the variety of things that were legitimately kind of piling up and some serious limits to the current situation, what made me think about what was going on there was her physiology was not just with the sty, but there was like a constriction of energy. So we unpacked, we made a little space on the call, maybe 10 minutes, to unpack what might you not want to see right now. What is grating on you? Like the grain of sand in your eye, like what's grating on you? And we had a little bit of a laugh around it. You can do the same thing with your stomach. What is it that you can't digest? What are you clenching around? Like, and just use it as a metaphor for unpacking and discovering what wisdom your body has to offer you. A, it's a good laugh. B, you're gonna find something interesting along the way. And what we uncovered in that dialogue was exactly not only the solution to kind of unlocking energy and moving forward, but her entire energetic set point released. She left the call kind of excited and invigorated about taking on the same darn challenges that she came into the call with. It doesn't take much, guys, but it does take a shift in perception and physiology. Try it out and let me know what you learn. I look forward to hearing about it in the chat.